Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video I'm going to talk to you about the Baker Act and why you should only use it in emergency circumstances. It is not designed to treat substance use. It's not designed to treat mental illness. It is purely an emergency cause of action. But the reason I'm making this video today is because we had a situation where a family called us and they said, we have a son, early 30s. There was a long history of drug use, a long history of mental illness. And I said, based on what you're telling me, I think that you should look to file either for a Marchman Act or a guardianship or a combination of both. And they said, well, we've been looking at the Baker Act and we think we're going to do that. And I said, why would you do the Baker Act as opposed to Marchman Act or guardianship? And they said, well, easy. We don't have to spend any money to do the Baker Act. And I said, so what are you telling me? It's about money? They said, no, we can afford to hire a lawyer, but we don't think we should. Why should we? We'll just go down to the courthouse and we'll file a petition for the Baker Act. And if it gets granted, well, then our loved one will go into treatment. And I said, no, they won't. And they said, yes, they will. We've read all about the Baker Act online, and we don't think we need to file for a Marchman Act or guardianship. And I said, okay, what's your plan if your loved one is released after 72 hours? And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, the initial involuntary detention is only up to 72 hours. They could get released. Okay, what's your plan if the Baker Act receiving facility that they get locked into decides to keep them? And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, they can get a court order to keep them up to 6 months. They said, fine. And I said, you're okay with that? I said, okay, when the facility stops talking to you because your parental rights will have been terminated by the authorizing of a Baker Act by a judge, what's your plan then? And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, hold on. I said, look, the Baker Act is a statute that allows the state of Florida to take custody of somebody. And once the state of Florida takes custody of somebody, if you're the parents of this adult child, your ability, your authority to make decisions for them is terminated. Their ability, their right to make decisions for themselves is also terminated. And they said, okay, we hear what you said, we're going to think about it. And then a week goes by, we didn't hear from the family, and they suddenly call us, and they're like, oh, we went down to the courthouse, we didn't take your advice, and now the facility is not talking to us. We went down to the courthouse, we got a judge, the court issued an order, the police took this poor, this young man away in handcuffs to this godforsaken place. And if you've ever been inside a Baker Act facility, you'll know what I'm talking about. They're not particularly, luxurious. Maybe that's not the right word, but you get the idea. And now the facility is not talking to them. They have no idea what treatment's being administered. They haven't spoken to their son in a couple of days. And they're like, what should we do? And I said, you need to file for guardianship. You could file for Marchman Act too, but at this point, I think we're better off to file for guardianship. Well, we don't think we should have to spend any money. Even though we have it, we're not going to spend any money. And I said, well, then we can't help you. I mean, I'm not telling you to hire me. But yeah, you're going to need to intervene right now, especially now, because now the state has your child. And they'll be happy to keep them. Oh, by the way, if that health insurance you've been paying for, the premium you've been paying for, they're very happy to get paid out of the benefits that you've been paid for, that you've been paying for. So I'm sharing this with you because, look, I totally get it. Some folks just don't have the finances for a lawyer. The information in this video, and literally at this point, the hundreds of other videos I put out, is free. You can have all this information for free. I'm not looking to charge anybody to get information from us, okay? If you call my office and you speak to one of my intake professionals, you can speak to them for free. They will send you one of our 2 ebooks for free. They'll send you more videos for free. But if you're going to hire a lawyer, whoever that might be, yeah, this is how I take care of my family. This is how I put food on the table. So I understand that, but stop. I want you guys to stop and think for a second about using the Baker Act for what it is not intended for. I get it. If someone's in crisis, pick up the phone and call 911. Okay, you don't need to go down to the courthouse. If they're in immediate crisis, you can go down, you can call 911 and have the police come and detain them. But at some point, you're going to have to intervene and take the responsibility of taking care of your adult child. And perhaps I'm speaking out of turn. I am a step parent. I understand a little bit about being a parent. But I've spoken to thousands and thousands of families over the years. So I know that you're in crisis. But if you allow the state of Florida to take custody of your loved one, if you actually get them back, I promise you, you will not like what you see. Unfortunately, here in Florida, the mental health system is completely draconian and broken. And I know all about that because I've had a family member that was Baker Acted, and I was there when it happened. And I know what the results were. So, using the Baker Act to try and save a loved one, to save your family, is just a recipe for disaster. And I want to share that with you. Hopefully this family will get back in touch with us, because even if their loved one gets out, it doesn't solve the problem. I mean, when someone has a behavioral health issue, they need to go into treatment. They need to stay in a clinically appropriate facility long enough so they can finally experience the miracle of recovery, and additionally, so they can develop the skill set, the habits that are needed to maintain recovery for the rest of their life. And meanwhile, you as the family have to take time to heal. Okay, whatever that looks like, whether it's getting clinical services for yourselves, good treatment facilities have a family program, all of that. But none of that's going to be available for you if you decide to go initiate a Baker Act, okay, which is a Band-Aid over a situation that needs major surgery. So that's my 2 cents for today. I appreciate you tuning in. I would love a thumbs up, and if you could subscribe to the channel, I'd be most grateful. Take care. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.